All right, we're on live. Welcome to Freeing All Minds is Freeing Your Mind. Today I'm going to be getting into the work of John Coleman, Tavistock Institute, Chapter 35, the music industry, mind control, propaganda, and war. We should note that Tavistock's influence in America has expanded since it began its own bureaus here in 1946. Tavistock has brought the art of disinformation to a fine-tuned pitch. Such disinformation campaigns start with carefully crafted rumors. These are, generally speaking, planted in right-wing circles, where they grow and spread like wildfire. Tavistock has long known that the right wing is a fertile breeding ground for rumors to grow and be spread. In my experiences, hardly a day passes that I am not asked to confirm some rumor or another, usually by people who should know better. The clever strategy of spreading disinformation through the rumor has a double benefit. It gives a semblance of credence to stories planted. One, it gives a semblance of credence to stories planted on conservatives. Two, by the time the information is proved to be false, the disinformation has tainted its purveyors to the extent where they may safely be described as crackpots, the paranoid fringe of the conservatives, extremists, and a whole lot worse. The next time you hear one of these kinds of rumors, think long and hard about the source of the rumor before you pass it along. Remember how Tavistock manipulators work. The juicier the rumor, the greater is your inclination to spread it. Will unwittingly make you a part of Tavistock's insidious disinformation machine. Turning out to another area of expertise in which Tavistock initiates its graduates. We refer to the assassination of politicians of importance who cannot be bought and who have to be silenced, or they think have to be silenced. I don't know why you'd write that as if that's have to be, as if that's proper. The murders of US presidents, Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley, and Kennedy are all linked to British intelligence MI6, and since 1923, associated with the Tavistock Institute. President Kennedy proved to be impervious to mind control by Tavistock. So was chosen for public execution as a warning to those who would aspire to power that none was higher than the Committee of 300. The grisly spectacle of the public execution of Kennedy was a message to the American people, one which they may not even now be aware of. Perhaps the Tavistock Institute provided the blueprint for Kennedy's execution. Perhaps it also carefully selected each and every participant, starting with the obviously mind-controlled Lee Harvey Oswald, and to the not-so-obviously Lyndon Johnson. Those who would not comply or who sought to bring out the truth suffered a variety of punishment, from disgrace, hounding from public life, and even death. We leave Tavistock's control of US presidents, past and future, and turn our attention to the music and entertainment industry. Nowhere is mind-controlled brainwashing of huge segments of American public so noticeable as it is in the music and entertainment industry. Decades later, misguided, uninitiated people still get angry with me over my exposure of the Beatles as a Tavistock project. Now, I fully expect the same people who tell me that they know all about the history of the Beatles, that they are musicians, and I am not, to question the following. Did you know that so-called rap music is another Tavistock program? So is hip-hop. As inane and idiotic as the words are, one can hardly call lyrics. These words have been crafted by the technician in mind control and behavior modification, so that they would fit in and became an integral part of Tavistock's gang wars program for America's major cities. The chief purveyors of this music, and indeed all so-called rock and pop music, excuse the Tavistock jargon, are Time Warner, Sony, Bertelsmann, EMI, the Capital Group, Seagram Canada, Philips Electronic, the Indies, Time Warner, man. Annual revenues 23.7 billion, 1996 figures. Its music publishing business owns 1 million songs through its subsidiary, Warner Chappell. These include songs by Madonna and Michael Jackson. It prints and publishes sheet music. Time Warner rap and pop labels include Amphetamine, Reptile, Asylum Sire, Rhino, Maverick, Revolution, Luca Bop, Big Head Todd, The Monsters, marketed through Warner REM. I've never heard of these bands, most of them. Time Warner also distributes alternative music labels through its subsidiary, Alternative Distribution Alliance, which covers the greater part of Europe and which is particularly strong in England and Germany. It is not by accident that these two countries have been targeted by the manipulators at Tavistock, but increasingly open incitement to violence, unrestrained sex, anarchism, and Satanism is found in abundance among the songs owned by Time Warner. But anarchism in the wrong context. I guess, yeah, it can go both ways. This almost cult-like dominance of the youth of Western Europe, and since the fall of the USSR, it is creeping into Russia and Japan also, is menacing civilization in Europe that has taken thousands of years to build up and mature. The huge following of youth and its seemingly insatiable appetite for this kind of utter junk music, quote unquote, is frightening to behold, as is Tavistock's grip on the minds of those who listen to it. Time Warner distributes music through music clubs which it owns outright, or else is in partnership with others. Columbia House is one example. Sony has a 50% share in Columbia House. Time Warner's manufacturing division, WEA, excuse me, makes CDs, CD-ROMs, audios, videos, digital versatile discs, while another subsidiary, Ivy Hill, prints CD covers and inserts American Family Enterprises. Another subsidiary markets music, books, and magazines in a 50% holding with Heartland Music. Time Warner Motion Pictures has studios and production companies comprising Warner Brothers, Castle Rock Entertainment, New Line Cinemas. Time Warner Motion Pictures owns 467 screens in the US and 464 screens in Europe. 1989 figures. The numbers are much greater today in 2005. It broadcasts to China, Japan, New Zealand, France, and Hungary. Its cable franchise lists 12.3 million subscribers. TV production distribution includes Warner Brothers Television, HBO Independent Productions, Warner Brothers Television Animations, Telepictures Productions, Castle Rock Television, New Line Television, Citadel Entertainment, Hanna-Barbera Cartoons, World Championship Wrestling, Turner Original Productions, Time Warner Sports, Turner Leasing, Warner Home Videos, and in its library it has 28,500 television titles and animated shorts. Time Warner owns CNN Radio, which acquired from Ted Turner. It also owns 161 retail outlet stores. Warner Books, Little, Brown, Sunset Books, Oxmoor House, and the Book of the Month Club. Time Warner owns the following magazines: People, Sports Illustrated, Time, Fortune, Life, Money, Entertainment, Weekly, Progressive, Farmer, Southern Accents, Parenting, Health, Hippocrates, Asia Week, Weight Watchers, Mad Magazine, DC Comics, American Express Travel and Leisure, Food and Wine. Time Warner also owns a number of theme parks: Six Flags, Warner Brothers Movie World, SeaWorld of Australia. I hope that at this point the reader will pause to reflect upon the enormous power of good or evil which rests in the hands of Time Warner. My goodness, that's like everything. That's like everything I've ever seen as a kid. Just go to Six Flags, spend summers at Six Flags. DC Comics, that's Wonder Woman, baby. I hope that at this point, the reader will pause to reflect upon the enormous power for good or evil which rests in the hands of Time Warner. Obviously, this giant could make or break anybody. And then remember, it is a client of the Tavistock Institute. It is frightening to contemplate what this mighty machine could do to public opinion and shaping the minds of the young, as we have seen with Gay Davis at Disney World. Sony's revenues in 1999 were estimated at $48.7 billion. It is the largest electronics company in the world. Its music division control rock, rap, pop. Columbia, Ruthouse, Legacy Recordings, Sony Independent, MIJ, Michael Jackson, Sony Music Nashville, Columbia Nashville. Sony owns thousands of rock/pop labels, including Bruce Springsteen's So Def, Slam Jazz, Bone Thugs and Harmony, Rage Against the Machine, Razor Sharp, Ghostface Killah, Crave, and Ruthless Relativity. I always knew Ghostface Killah was about that mind control bullshit. I always knew it. How can you not? But the Wu-Tang is pretty much guilty by association in my book. I'm so grateful this is my first time reading this, and it's everywhere. It's everywhere to the point of you'd think you need to fit in to like try and fit in with those. But I noticed even if I try to fit in, I'd automatically be a square in a circle peg. You know, and in this case, they're trying to create a circle peg. They're trying to really create a circle peg, but like the square of my square peg would never fit in it. Like it would just be like, it just never made any sense. But Ghostface Killah, man, like with a name like that, like what inspired that name? That just sounds like some dumb bullshit. Let's be 100% honest. And I have friends that are honestly like talking about like the integrity of this guy. Outside of it, for the integrity of himself and his personal life, he has none. If you have ever stopped to wonder how this awful idiocy with its highly suggestive word and incitement to violence got so big in such a short time, now you know. It's Back to the Hilt by Sony. Tavistock has long regarded rap as a useful messenger to precede anarchy and chaos. You see how he tries to slip it in? That anarchy is chaos, which is getting closer and closer. Sony distributes punk alternative rock label Epitaph Records, Hellcat, Rancid, Crank Possum Records, and Epitome Surf Music by Blue Stingray. In addition, Sony publishes music through Sony/ATV Music Publishing. Sony owns all of Michael Jackson's songs, quote unquote, and nearly the entire range of the Beatles, quote unquote. Wow. And so it's just like Ruthouse Records, that's what released the Fugees, The Score, Lauryn Hill, Wyclef. Man, I'm going back here. I'm just thinking, wow, I remember hearing them shouting them out when I used to listen to that album on repeat. And then I revisited it recently, and I realized this is a bunch of mind control. But yeah, I mean, she eventually admitted to that, and she just came back. You know, Lauryn Hill just kind of came back to reality with it. with her poetry and her work. But my goodness, I guess there's a dark side to everything. Sony owns Lowe's Theater. Sony Theaters and its television interests include network game shows. It has about 15% of the market in music sales, sheet music, and is the largest international music company in the world. Sony's other products are CD records, optical discs, audio, and videotapes. Lowe's hotel property in Monte Carlo is a clearinghouse of information for drug trafficking, and its employees report directly to the Monte Carlo police any suspicious activity going on in the hotel. Suspicious meaning outsiders trying to bust into the trade. Several of the senior level front desk employees are Monte Carlo police trained to keep an eye on things. This is not to stamp out drug dealing. It is merely to keep upstarts getting into the drug deal. Outsiders arriving in Lowe's hotel are informed on and are promptly arrested. Such events are sold to the press and the world news media as drug busts. Sony Motion Picture Divisions consists of Columbia Pictures, TriStar Pictures, Sony Pictures, Classic Triumph, Triumph Films with rights to Columbia Home TriStar Movies. Its television interests include network game shows. Man, I'm on a Sony computer right now. Like, this is crazy. It's like there has to be an art of acting. There has to be an art of this and art of that, like that exists separate of this. Like I'm not this. Anyone who's really paying attention to what I'm reading and what's been written, it's just like for me personally, I feel like wow, that means all acting is bad or all this form is bad. But they just monopolized it. Doesn't mean everything is like that. A German privately held, it doesn't mean you have to be fringe all the time. You can still fully express yourself. A German privately held, Bertelsmann A.G. A German privately held company owned by Reinhard Mann. Its estimated revenues were $15.7 billion in 1999. Bertelsmann owns 200 music labels from 40 countries, which labels cover rap, rock, pop. Whitney Houston, The Grateful Dead, Bad Boys, NG Records, Volcano Enterprises, Dancing Cat, Addict, G Street, Jungle Brothers, and Global Soul. All of these contain explicit incitement to sex aberrations, drug talking, quote-unquote anarchy, and violence. Bertelsmann owns country and western properties. Arista Nashville, Pam Tillis, Career, Leroy Parnell, RCA Label Group, B&A, Lori Morgan. Other titles it owns are the soundtrack from Star Wars, Boston Pops, New Age and Windham Hill, etc. The company publishes sheet music through BMG Music, which controls the rights to 700,000 songs, including the Beach Boys, B.B. King, Barry Manilow, 100,000 famous music of Paramount Studios. It owns 7 music clubs in the US and Canada. It makes credit cards for MBNA Bank. Oh, what's up, man? Yo. Is he there? You there? Can you hear me? Stone. All right, I'll just continue here. Bertelsmann AG does tremendous book business worldwide and is very much a committee of 300 affiliate. Bertelsmann holdings include Doubleday, Dell Publishers, Family Circle, Parent and Child, Fitness, American Homes and Gardens, with 38 magazines in Spain, France, Italy, Hungary, and Poland. Bertelsmann Television and satellite channels are in Europe, where it is the largest broadcaster. This company is very vindictive and will not hesitate to attack anyone who dares to reveal what it thinks might not be in the company's best interest. Hey, Stone, are you there? EMI. a British-based company with estimated revenues of $6 billion in 1999. The company owns 60 music labels in 46 countries. Rock, pop, rap. That's the freaking equation right now. Beetle Boys, Chrysalis, Grand Royal, Parlophone, I don't know any of these bands. Pumpkin Smashers, Virgin, Point Blank. I guess it's just a matter of taste. EMI owns and controls the Rolling Stones, Duck Down, No Limit, No Limit, like Master P, No Limit. Oh my goodness, N00 Tribe, Rap a Lot, the Ghetto Boys. No, my mind's playing tricks on me. With an immense sheet music publishing business. Well, actually, now that I think about it. Yo, Stone, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh man, yeah, man. What's going on?
Hello?
Did you just get? Did you? I heard some clicking. I didn't know if that was you because I'm just on this. I'm just looking at the PDF document. But,
Yeah, I've been listening to you.
Yeah, man. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Yeah, man. So that's pretty cool. Like, I mean, I'm just pretty much looking at what is what. Like, all my favorite albums, I'm realizing, are just pretty much owned by this, like, essentially the Tavistock Institute. And they own everything, man. Like, I was just like, even like
Yeah,
like, I was looking at the Ghetto. Have you heard of the Ghetto Boys? My mind's playing tricks on me. Like Scarface and all that.
Yeah.
You know,
Heard of them.
all that stuff is under them, man. All that stuff is under that label. And like you see, like
Which label?
I used to wonder. Yeah, all that stuff is like pretty much under that label. And this label is just basically, you know, they're basically under Tavistock. They're under like the umbrella of this. Used to wonder like where the music industry money comes from. This is where it comes from. Like how do they get that? And then how come all of them usually they turn out burnt out? They turn out, you know, music industry stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm just reading the list, and they just have all of these like, all of like some of my favorite people, and then a bunch of indie people that I would hear like from the side. People be like, oh, you know, the Pumpkin Smashers, and I'd be like, okay, I don't know what that is, but now I'm glad I didn't. Like, I'm seeing some Mind Control that I fell for. They used to come on TV, but I'm seeing a lot that I didn't fall for, and I was just talking about how I naturally kind of gravitated away anyways from shit like Ghostface Killer and Wu-Tang and all that, and or most rap. Eventually, I was just like, no, it's a rap. But yeah, man. Yeah. What's your experience with music, man? What's your relationship with music?
Pretty similar to that. I mean, it's really easy to get into very negative music just because it's so prevalent. No matter where you go in the world, it's going to be, you know, even if you're listening to something on the radio and it sounds like a nice little love song, still, if you're like really listening to the details of what they're saying, it's usually about some dysfunctional relationship or some not empowering bit of information. It's very hard to find anything that has a truly positive message that's popular. Good. If you look deep enough, and some of them really not at all, you'll find some extremely harmful messages, and especially like in the rap, like you were talking about, like Ghostface Killer and stuff. Of course, that stuff usually seems to focus on violence and drugs and disrespect towards women and respect towards each other too. You know, gang violence and all that stuff. Like, or just, I mean, you know, you saw Lennon Honor's whole NWA analysis. Like, that's pretty much a perfect example right there. You know, you have throughout their entire discography, you know, saying having 128 statements disrespecting women, like, and then you listen to that record over and over, you times, and that multiplies already to like almost 1,000 times you're hearing. So how do you think that's gonna get into your consciousness? It's definitely a very effective tool, and I've certainly been negatively affected by it.
Yeah, I mean the Rolling Stones.
What was it?
You got the Rolling Stones as well. You know, like that's everywhere. You see that everywhere. It's stuff that you see everywhere, but may have not like subscribed to, and now you know why you haven't.
And then even even bands or individuals that actually did have positive message, like somebody like Bob Marley or something, instead of actually seeing him the symbol or what he stood for, you never see that. I'm sure you don't see shirts that say Bob Marley, get up, stand up for your rights. You see Bob Marley with a picture of him.
Yeah.
He's basically a marijuana symbol now. It's not a symbol of freedom. It's a symbol of overuse of a plant, So it's like...
Right. Same. I was watching a Tupac interview. And he was talking about like what thug life symbolized, and he's saying that that's thug life is basically like what we're talking about, just like the way our conditions have been molded around us and the different like mind control attempts and all of this. And he says like that as a result, he said it's a diagnosis. He said thug life is a diagnosis. It's not an excuse to just be like, they keep on referring to anarchy in this as chaos. And it's not it's not an excuse to be chaos. It's just he called thug life like a high school that you graduate from. And I really like that interview. Was pretty amazing. It was his 1995 while he was in prison, and yeah, it was deep.
So like the world or society almost is the school, and to get through the school, then once you graduate from that, that's thug life. Is that what you're saying?
No, he's saying thug life is like high school. I mean, I'm probably not saying it properly, but he said something to the effect of thug life being like high school, and how some people like to stay in the high school days all the time, and never want to graduate. And he was talking about how you graduate from thug life to like uplifting your community and basically starting a revolution. You don't stay in the thug life and rape your community.
Right.
But you actually, you free your community. And he's talking about like just how, thugs, like the degenerates would simply like, act all hard to a certain extent, but they're not going all the way and like, actually starting a revolution or actually, creating boundaries and, actually getting up. Yeah.
How did, I've heard like, all right, I don't know, I guess I've seen like t-shirts or something that say like thug life with Tupac. So is that like his catchphrase or something? Or like how is it connected with that?
It's been blown up the wrong way, right? Just like that's the same way like with how you're saying with Bob Marley.
Right.
Like it's just a weed symbol now. He was saying thug life is a diagnosis. It's not a promotion. You know what I mean? He's saying it's a diagnosis of what it is.
Would he use it in his songs though? How would he use it in context? Would he rap it and say thug life, or would he write it? Like,
yeah, I see what you mean.
How did he?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
He would be like, he would just say it in a way like he'd be describing a situation in his life, like in his music is mostly reflections, and then he would just yell out thug life, and that would be, that would be kind of the way he'd use it in context in his lyrics.
But so he wasn't promoting it.
What'd you say?
He wasn't promoting it by saying it.
It wasn't. He would just say it because he's diagnosing the situation that he just explained in his lyrics. That's why. Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting.
It's a good thing that he had that interview though and made the distinction, because otherwise, like, you kind of know that if you're just yelling out thug life, you know that people want to read into it exactly how you want to. Oh
Oh
yeah.
hell no! And he knew that, and he understood that, and ultimately there was a side of him that knew that and used Thug Life for all the ways that it was. There's a little bit of static. Is that your mic?
I'm not sure. Is it? I don't hear
It went,
anything.
it went away. It went away. All right. So, oh, now it's back. Did you hear that? Okay. All right. So yeah, it went away. You there?
Yeah.
Kind of coming in and out. The
Gone
static.
now?
Static is it's just kind of coming in and out. I don't know if it's your mic, but
So what were you talking about before? You were talking about Sony, it sounded like mostly? Or
I was saying that I mean, with the Thug Life, I think that it was just like there's a side of him where he had to actually, it was just a much darker time, and he had to actually, make make life was just a certain way where he had to do actual Thug Life things. So it was just like he kind of was manifesting stuff. That's the thing about music is like you manifest. He was on Death Row Records. You know what I mean? Like there's things that were kind of like dark, like off the from the beginning structure that you couldn't just really, unless you took some action to change, you can't really just outcreate that or like co-create with that, because it's just like that structure is just, it leads to death ultimately. You can't be on Death Row Records and you know what I mean, like it's
bring
called
life
Death
and
Row.
yeah, you're not
Yeah.
gonna bring much positivity into it. Like that.
Yeah. So he had like a lot of
So
things that
but
he was locked into like that. So that's
but
why
before you
it's kind of like a gray area.
were talking about Sony Records company
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um
They're just going into. Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
well, I know what was it, I think 1996 is when all of the major, or like there used to be a bunch of different record labels, and then I think it was 1996 when they all got consolidated under the three Sony, Universal, and Warner, if I'm not mistaken. And that's kind of when the whole consolidation happened. And now it's to the point where pretty much every major artist that's out there is under one of those three labels.
Wow. Okay, so get this. I'm gonna continue reading. The Capital Group. This Los Angeles-based investment group sold 35% of its stock to Seagrams, the Bronstein's liquor company, and in a high-ranking committee of 300 property. Seagrams has an 80% stake in Universal Music Group, formerly MCA. I think that's the Lion, right? That stuff goes all the way back in the 60s with that Lion. Now, Matsushita Electric Industries property. Wow. I guess it's been around for a while. It's been bought and sold a million times. Its 1999 revenues were estimated as 14 billion. Seagram owns in excess of 150,000 copyrights, including the copyrights of Impact, Mechanic, Zebra, Radioactive Records, Fort Apache Records, Heavy D and the Boys. Aw, R.I.P. Heavy D, man. The Capital Group has joint ventures with Steven Spielberg, Jeffrey Katzenberg, and David Geffen. In its country and western division, the company owns Reba McEntire, wow, Winona, George Strait, Dolly Parton, Lee Ann Rimes, and Hank Williams. Through Seagram, the company owns concert halls at Fiddler's Green, Denver, Blossom Music Center, Cleveland, Gorge Amphitheater, Washington State, Starplex, Dallas. It has expanded to Toronto and Atlanta. The Capital Group, through the motion picture division, owns Demi Moore, Danny DeVito, Penny Marshall, and a host of minor figures in the movie-making business. Universal Films Library is a Capital Group property, as is Universal Films Library. The company owns 500 retail stores, several hotels, as well as Universal Studios in Hollywood. And it's interesting because the book it kind of gets more convoluted as you have to like see how it's connected. I mean, obviously, oh, it's connected to Tavistock Institute, all of it. But it's like, you see how it was pulled off. Like, it's constantly being filtered down, filtered down, filtered down. And then you just kind of looking at a name and you have no idea with how many connections it is. And that's why they kind of pulled it off. You would never know, like, Capital Group, blah, 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 is connected to Universal Studios, which is connected to this and eventually leads up to Tavistock. It's not like it was right there in front of your face. So, I mean, they named some big names just now, huge names. The Indies, one of the smaller companies in the music and entertainment. Its annual revenues is estimated at $5 billion. I've never heard of the Indies. The company has a substantial portfolio of rock, rap, pop labels, mostly of the more bizarre kind. Its country and western division owns Willie Nelson, and the distribution is done through the Big Six. Even without ownership of any independent retail stores or outlets, the company managed to capture an astounding 21% of U.S. music sales. The significance of this is most of its revenue comes from bizarre rap, pop, rock sales of the violent, abusive, foul language, sexually suggestive titles. It keeps on saying anarchy, which shows the way the youth of America is going. Philips Electronic. This Dutch company had revenues of $15.8 billion in 1996. While it is mainly an electronics company, it is in the Big Six category primarily because of ownership of 75% of Polygram Music. Its portfolio of labels, as in rock, pop, rap, Elton John is one of its properties. Philips ranks third in the music publishing business, with 375,000 copyright titles. Through its subsidiaries in Europe and Britain, in 1998, Philips produced 540 million CDs and VHS tapes. Its motion pictures division owns Jodie Foster, while Philips Television owns Robert Redford's Sundance Films and Propaganda Films. The foregoing information should give you, the reader, and some idea of the immense power this giant industry wields over our daily lives, how it is shaping the minds of the youth of America. Without the control and the advanced techniques made available to those companies through Tavistock, the giant strides the industry has made would not have been possible. So he's trying to connect it in, but he's trying to say Tavistock provided them with advanced techniques. I'm not sure exactly. Okay, the giant strides the industry has made would not have been possible. The information I have provided should shake you to your very foundations when you come to the realization that Tavistock controls what news we see, what home movies and television network movies we are allowed to see, what music we listen to. I'm just surprised with the music, man. The music was a heavy hitter because, it's the one thing where you're not really thinking and you just kind of will tune into. That's the hugest offense in my eyes. Behind this gigantic enterprise stands the Tavistock Institute for Human Relations. As I have clearly demonstrated, America is marching in lockstep with the gigantic movie music industry. Hitherto unknown forces, powerful forces whose sole aim and object is to pervert, twist, and distort the minds of our youth, to make it all easier for the Committee of 300 to usher in the socialist New World Order, one world government, in which the new communists rule. The information I have put before you should be a source of great alarm as you contemplate the future of your children and the youth of America. Having come to the knowledge and understanding that they are being fed a diet of anarchistic revolutionary fervor, anarchistic ideas, revolutionary fervor, and incitement to take drugs, free sex, abortion, lesbianism, and homosexual acceptance. Without the giant music and entertainment industry, Michael Jackson would only have been the puerile, insipid non-entity that he was puffed, quote unquote. And Tavistock told the youth of our land just how great he is and how much they, the youth of the Western world, would love him. It also has to do with the power to control the media. As much as the music and entertainment industry is what I call an open secret, quote unquote, designed by Tavistock, I do not expect my work on this vital subject to be accepted as the whole truth, at least up to the year 2015, which is the year I anticipate the outbreak of Armageddon, quote unquote. It's 2017 now, and probably in America that didn't happen, and most other countries none of that happened. But that was a pretty good prediction. The all-out nuclear cab war. Nah, man. And the full wrath of God will fall on the United States of America. He embeds this little propaganda in it too. You can't like talk about like the freaking mind control aspects without having a quick snub nose secret weapon, to the reader so that they wouldn't be so empowered. But with regard to massive media control, it is not difficult for even the untrained observer to see, hear, and read that indeed the U.S. has a controlled media, the product of the Tavistock Institute. This factor is what got President Bush elected, and then, to the astonishment of all of Europe and at least half of the American voters, saw him elected for a second term in spite of his deplorable record. How did this happen? The question is easily answered. Due to the breakdowns of America's national media, traditional broadcasters abandoned their obligation to promote the public interest. They no longer felt an obligation to report two sides of the questions. The national media intensified its policy of mixing news with fiction. That began with the War of Worlds, quote unquote. While this attracted viewers and increased revenues, it did nothing for the long-held doctrine of fairness in broadcasting, so essential to the flow of information in a free society. In recent years, this grave problem has been exacerbated by the rise of the right-wing Thunder Squad, quote unquote, who will tolerate no contra opinion, but they broadcast only the Bush administration's opinion, and they are not above twisting and spinning the news in the best Tavistock manner. This was confirmed by a joint survey in 2004 carried out by the Center on Policy Studies, the Center on Policy Attitudes, the Program on International Policy Attitudes, and the Center for International and Security Studies. What they found is really the key to why Bush is still in the White House, and a tribute to the power of professional propaganda. It's got bullet points here. 75% of the Bush faithful were not convinced by the President Commission's finding that Iraq had nothing to do with Al-Qaeda. The majority of Bush's supporters believed that a greater part of the Islamic world supported the U.S. in its invasion of Iraq. This is totally at variance with the facts Egypt, a Muslim state, does not support the USA, and majority of Egyptians want the U.S. out of Iraq. Turkey, which although a secular state is overwhelmingly Muslim, by a vote of 87% is opposed to the U.S. being in Iraq and reject the reasons given for the invasion. 70% of the Bush faithful believe that Iraq possessed weapons of mass destruction. That phrase is just bullshit from the top, from off top. Oh man, but yeah. What I've written here is the indisputable truth, but it will take a major event to confirm it. As such, just as it took 14 years for my committee of 300 book and 25 years for my Club of Rome report to be confirmed by Alexander King himself. But let there be no doubt that the Tavistock today, in 2005, is in full control of every aspect of life in America. Not one thing escapes its notice. In 2005, we are witness to the amazing influence and power of the Tavistock Institute and its upper-level masters. The Committee of 300, in the manner of which the United States is run by used to be run by that President George Bush. and the acceptance of what Bush says and does without question or doubt. The reasons for these mistaken beliefs are not hard to find. The Bush administration told the American public many times in '94 that Iraq did have nuclear weapons ready for use. Also passed off as truth were Bush administration reports that President Hussein was supporting Al-Qaeda units in Iraq and that Al-Qaeda was responsible for the World Trade Center attack, all of which was without foundation. Yet members of the roaring right radio network happily repeated these errors, notably Hannity and Combs and Fox News. Mr. Hannity obligingly told his audience that the weapons had been moved to Syria. He never offered a shred of evidence to support his statement. In addition to Fox News and other talk, radio shows churn out masses of propaganda. Chief exponents of radio propaganda on behalf of the Bush administrations are Rush Limbaugh, Matt Drudge Sean, Hannity Ball O'Reilly, Tucker Carlson, Oliver North John, Stossel Gordon, Liddy Peggy, Luna Larry King, oh my gosh, Michael Regan, Gordon Liddy, Dick Morris, William Bennett, Michael Savage, Joe Scarborough. Larry King is one of the best trained Tavistock puppets. When on the rare occasion he has an opponent of the Bush war on his show, he will give them about 2 minutes to make their case, immediately followed by 5 pro-Bush experts to rebut the daring dissenter. Nearly all of the foregoing radio personalities have received instruction from the experts at Tavistock to a greater or lesser degree. When one studies their methodology, it bears a distinct resemblance to the methods of presentation perfected at Tavistock. The same can be seen in the television personalities, the news anchors, and their message news that, quote-unquote, news that differs neither in content or style of delivery. Without exception, they all bear the imprint of the Tavistock Institute. The United States is in the grip of the greatest and sustained of mass mind control, brainwashing, and conditioning program, and is reflected at every level of our society. The masters of spin, deception, conniving, dissembling, half-truths, and its twin brother, outright lies, have the American people by the throat. Churchill, before he was turned, quote-unquote, declared in the House of Commissions that the Bolsheviks have seized Russia by the hair of its head. We make bold to say that Tavistock has seized the head and the mind of the American people. Unless there is a great awakening spirit of 1776 and the revival that took place among the generation that followed the founding fathers, the United States is doomed to collapse, even as the Greek and Roman civilizations collapsed. What is needed is the formation of our own invisible army of shock troops that will go into every village, every town, every city across the length and breadth of the United States to deliver the counterpunch that will send the Tavistock troops into full retreat and ultimate defeat. That's like the end of the book, man. That's the end of the book. And chapter 35. I noticed that, like, with books, it seems that towards the end is where you get the strong, hard-hitting part. You hear me?
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, what is that?
Yeah, that was awesome, man. That's called the Tavistock Institute by John D. Coleman. You can get it free. You can get it online for free.
Yeah.
Free PDF.
I can check that out. Basically, just showing exactly how those complete fallacies get spread out there. Seems pretty easy.
Yeah, man. It's like that's crazy how he ends on that note, because the book seems kind of like first start reading it.
Yeah.
Then you see he's got Bone Thugs and Harmony, Ghostface Killah at the end. Like, it's just like the uppercut. The uppercut level is high. It's a high uppercut. You know, it's a Street Fighter, like, Ryu uppercut. You know what I mean? Like the one that diminishes all your health. Like that's the level of uppercut that was at the end of this book. I knew this book was gonna have a heavy uppercut. I just didn't. I've only worked through like I'll start the book, work through like the first couple chapters, and start the book and work through the first couple chapters. But you know, this time I was just like, you know what? I'm just gonna start from the end and then work my way back. And that's it's much better now. I'm much more motivated and inspired to read it, especially now that I'm broadcasting it and I can replay my own voice, hearing like myself reading and finishing this whole chapter.
Yeah.
That way I can pretty much basically reread it 9 more times or however many more times so that I can always remember it, so that whenever I'm in a situation, if I'm even in a situation where I'm congregating with family, I'll always find a way to just, you know, go somewhere else if that's going to be happening around me. You know, because there'd be times where I'd sit and watch TV or play video games. A lot of times, not just one time. And I'm just realizing now, you know, all that stuff is connected. So it's pretty, it's shaking me up to the root of my foundation, just like how it said in the book. Completely.
First time you read it?
Huh? Yeah, that's the first time I've ever read it. And I'm not proud to admit that at all. It's because it's required reading, and I'm just discovering, oh, this is like required shit. Like this is something that I'm supposed to have read at least twice before going on air and reading it. But hey, man, you know, it's just interesting because that's how the mind control is that deep, where I'll find myself, you know, my thoughts would just wander, or like things. Sometimes I just need someone else like you, or someone like a co-host, or someone else that will be present to keep me on track, or just like someone to keep me accountable. That's something that I struggle with. But yeah, I'm happy that I actually got a chance to do it. That's because this is going to be on my page forever, and you know, I'm going to promote this video pretty heavily, especially to like my friends that are like into this. You know, that I will notice that I used to be obsessed over at least 1 or 2 of those people that were named there. Hands down, like some of the melodic concepts or the musical concepts that came out of a couple of those people. And I'm sure if I look back and like listen to more of them, there's probably more good shit there, like more good music and content there. But like these are billions-dollar companies, and I used to wonder how, like, you know, these people would get all rich. But now I do. It's because they're using techniques and fortified mind control to basically rob the communities, rob the countries, the international communities, people out. I thought, you know, when you go to Europe, though, I'll admit, when you go to Europe, it's much lighter. And the times that I visited Europe, the mind control it's like the French version. You know what I mean? Like how they describe the French as like, you know, weaker. I would have to say the mind control is like it's parallel to that. It's a lot weaker because they don't need to apply so much force. Here, we still own guns. Like we still, like yesterday, the fireworks were crazy. I'm talking about like, boom, boom. It sounded like a gunfight yesterday. So there's still that fire. There's still some fire here. There's still definitely some strong masculine figures here. As opposed to Europe, it's just like being a dead horse. For the most part, it's like being a dead horse. There's some individuals walking around, you know, doing their thing, but that's it. You know, it's just some separate, like in France, you probably have like a few individuals that are very perfect at what they do, and they're just they're perfectionists, but they're by themselves. They haven't multiplied their being to like have more of that, like, you know, on point, balanced, you know, collectives around, so that the majority, so that they're not overwhelmingly surrounded by people who are brainwashed. And that's just, I mean, now we're at the point where we're going to have free reign. I feel like a lot of the things that are described in this book are declining naturally anyway. but it's good to reread so that we don't remanifest or recreate it thinking that that was the right way, because of how the reality manipulation, like the reality manipulation that we've encountered. And it's just a matter of not remanifesting that with our thoughts, feelings, and actions at this point. In our words, that's the key. That's the key. It's just understanding what you're creating, and yeah.
Are you saying people in Europe are more feminine or less aggressive?
I would say like more in mainland Europe, Scandinavia. I feel like you find a little bit more aggressive people, but Germany, you find some aggressive people. London and Britain, the British experience that I have, they were pretty aggressive. Places like Belgium, places like Holland. Holland has some pretty aggressive people. The Dutch are aggressive. But places like Belgium, places like France, places like most of London, really, a lot of London. But at the same time, London, you have your as well. From what I've experienced, it's still softer because it's less people, it's less population density, and it's just there's different planetary energies as well. Especially when you're going to Scandinavia, they can't adapt to everything. They can just pretty much overlay something there. It doesn't connect though. Like the mind control that's happening out west is happening out west. It's not really like connecting. It's can't really cross that much terra, in my opinion. I feel like from what I've seen personally, there'll be times where like I actually have some Swedish friends who play American football, which is kind of rare, and they're playing like ASAP Rocky, and that was kind of weirding me out because I traveled across freaking, I traveled way over, and I'm hearing somebody that's from New York, in Sweden, so it was kind of off. That was I've had some moments where I was like, okay, they're orchestrating now, they're coordinating, and something's up, something's changed. But before, when I visited them, it was like just much more cleaner, cooler vibes. Just put it in a succinct way. That's what it just, something changed. And I could tell at that point that some type of music or some type of content had been filtering through almost in real time, or they've been observing a couple Americans, and it's just been, it's been kind of, or they've met some American people and observing what they subscribe to. You drop out? Looks like Stone might have dropped out. About hitting the hour mark anyway. All right, so that was it. I think I'll wrap it up. So this is Tavistock Institute by John Coleman, chapter 35, close to the end of the book. Going on the music industry, and very good to read, very good to filter though. Filter the knowledge when it comes in. It's still very good to read because he's putting names out. He's dropping names in this chapter. So a lot of the names that he dropped out I wasn't aware of, which I'm grateful for. And that's it. That's freeing your mind equals freeing all minds. And see you next week.